Good evening and welcome to the Chaska City Council meeting for Monday, October 17th, 2022. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. You guys jumping the gun? Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Please recall roll, please.
Councilmember Hatfield.
Here.
Councilmember Hubbard. Here. Councilmember Wong.
Here.
Councilmember Grau.
Here.
Mayor Winchell.
Here. Moves to item 4, adopting the agenda. Are there corrections or additions to the agenda? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Hubbard,
Second.
second by Councilmember Hatfield to adopt the agenda. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. Motion carries. Next up, we have a proclamation for Southern Valley Alliance on Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Katie, are you here?
I'm here.
Hi. I'll come out and meet you at the lectern. These glasses are hard to read. All right, so we have a proclamation in recognition of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas the City of Chaska, in recognition of the critical work being done by domestic violence advocates in service of the survivors and victims they serve, I encourage all citizens to actively engage in the work and events sponsored by Southern Valley Alliance and other organizations working toward the elimination of domestic violence. And whereas more than 10 million adults experience domestic violence and over 1.5 million high school students are physically abused by dating partners annually in the United States. Whereas more than 19,000 calls are placed to domestic violence hotlines nationwide every day. And whereas the impact of domestic violence is felt not only by individuals and families, but communities and nation as a whole. And whereas Chaska joins with others across the state of Minnesota and nationwide in supporting domestic violence victims and survivors, the advocates and organizations who serve them, and holding offenders accountable in Chaska. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Mark Winchell, the mayor of the city of Chaska, on behalf of the Chaska City Council and the citizens of Chaska, do hereby proclaim October 2022 Domestic Violence Awareness Month. In witness whereof, I hereby set my hand in the seal of the city of Chaska, 17th day of October in the year of our Lord 2022. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think
Yes.
Kevin wants a photo.
Yeah, if you guys want to sneak over in front of the council there.
Sure. Should I bring this with?
Guess it wasn't very good.
Here?
I'm not gonna argue with a professional camera person.
Well, we'll scoot you guys this way a little bit so that everyone can be seen. We'll just get the council, sorry. Staff.
Oh,
All
sitting
right,
this way.
1, 2, 3. Thank you.
I guess.
Just very quickly, want to thank you all. Thank you, Mayor and Council, so much for this opportunity to continue to partner together to raise awareness within our community. October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month is such an important time to honor victim survivors within our community and continue to raise awareness. Our organization, Southern Valley Alliance, is celebrating our 40th anniversary this year, serving Carver and Scott counties. Since our organization was founded 40 years ago, we've serviced over 23,000 individuals within our community, and in the city of Chaska alone, over 3,000 individuals. This is truly something that impacts our community, and we'd like to think that it doesn't happen in our own backyard, but it truly does. So we really appreciate you helping us continue to raise awareness and look forward to doing greater and bigger things for our community, especially as we are preparing for our big move next year. We have purchased a brand new property in Shakopee. We will be moving next summer from Belle Plaine to Shakopee to be more centralized between the two counties that we serve. So continue looking through our website and social media for more information about that move. We're really looking forward to it, and thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate all the work you do.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, that moves us to our visitor presentation, and on my list, I have His House Foundation with Martha.
That's me. And Kevin knows I have a presentation, but I wasn't sure it was working. Do I have to like send him a secret code?
He's speaking. What'd you say, Kevin?
Hold on one second, pulling it up.
Okay, I'm Martha from the nonprofit His House. And I just wanted to thank Mayor and all the council people for admin for allowing me to come. And I'm just going to, oh, there it is. Share information about who we are in the community, and then we're having a sleep out, so I know you guys all want to come to that and sleep outside in the middle of winter. So we'll go over that at the end. How about that? So we're a 501c3. Keep going, Kevin. Keep going. Keep going. There's some of our community partners. Keep going. So we have the resource center in the basement of the Moravian Church. Everything's free, no limits, no boundaries, no service area. We don't track by name. We track by kind of the weight of what's coming in and the weight, not of the people, but of the stuff coming in and going out. Okay, keep going. So this year, you remember we rented the house, which I appreciate that vote, and we are doing casework in the house now so that we can have private meetings with our clients. We went from being just the little resource center in the basement of the church, now we have 22 caseworkers and a lot of clients, and through that process, you can go through the pictures, they're just pictures of inside the house, but and we have private meetings. That's the basement of the Moravian Church where we have everything free. And then we drive around in the bus and honk the horn, and we have food. And, okay, stop there. So in the church house then, since last we spoke, I don't know if when I was doing the conditional use permit for the house, we became certified with the state of Minnesota in housing stabilization services. So we're licensed or certified statewide to walk alongside someone who's in a housing crisis for up to 2 years. We are the United Way 211 crisis line responder for housing in this region. So if somebody calls 211 that they're homeless, it's going to come to this phone right here. I'll let you know if it rings. And then the other thing we do with the van is we still do the street outreach, and that's through environmental services at Carver County, that we're collecting food, diverting it from the waste stream at restaurants and sometimes food shelves, and then deliver it immediately to people that are homeless or in homeless programs if they're in hotels, or lately we've had to do some route around at campgrounds and deliver the food that's already cooked, because if you're living in transition, you might not be able to make a chicken if you're living in your car. So let's go on. I don't know what else is there. There we are picking up the pizzas at Little Caesars. And then we have the food truck that was given to us from Scott County Environmental Services. And we use that for our open house like last week. And so we cook the food that's been diverted from the waste stream. The last time we used it, we had too many donuts, milk, eggs, and carrots. So we made French toast donuts on a carrot. So don't tell public health, right? And so we just make the food and then we give it all away. So there he is making French toast donuts on a carrot. It was really popular. Or not. There we are diverting food, so we're at zero waste because then we compost everything. And that's like it. There's the funnel. This is a funnel, keep going down, that I use for the homeless process, of how it gets more and more narrow as less options become available until you're at the bottom. And then there's homelessness, which is then when we kind of step in, and that's where we all have to coordinate resources that are available. And that's where this summer we did get into a lot of tents. We were giving away in 1 2-week period 14 tents because there wasn't any other option. And then we, like I said, created the route then where we were delivering food to the campgrounds. So one thing that I noticed when we were doing the tents, it seemed to be going from what I would call our typical homeless to the working poor. We gave away tents to a woman who works at the bank, and her 3 children. One of the, a lady that works up the road at the box, at one of the big box stores, and she was sleeping in her car while she was working. And then the other one is one of our state DMV offices and her children, and that was 2 days before school started. So all of those people, we just gave tents to because we didn't know what other solutions that were available. I have 3 students that we're paying for shelter right now that are from the Chaska School District. And so I try and use our discretionary funds for veterans and students just to make sure that when we get that call, but it's not enough to address all of the families that are coming to our attention. And it's, like I said, it seems to be going up to the working poor instead of right at our homeless with mental health and addiction. So just a concern there. That's why, right, I didn't have one of those for the slideshow, but we're gonna do the sleep out, right? And we're all gonna show up and we're all gonna sleep outside. It's a fundraiser, so we charge you a lot of money to sleep outside November 5th. And if we catch you sneaking off, then we charge you even more, right? So that's all I got. That's it. Any questions about his house and where we're at, where we're going?
Questions for Martha?
Erica, are you gonna stay outside? Yes. All right.
Yeah. I have her credit card.
When we're talking this, what is kind of the service area of?
Housing stabilization, so I can address anyone in the state. But if we're talking about people that come and knock on our door today, the house was completely full. I had 12 people go through that were homeless. And we triage that and get them in the lane they might need to be in.
And now, when you say you're giving tents and they're going to a campground, is that campground local?
I Uber them to, like the one lady that wanted to bathe, I had to make sure that she was going to a campground that had showers. And then also, so no, I always Uber them to a family campground because they all had children except for the single woman that wanted to shower. Now, I have done a count of what is down by the river, you know, by asking one of the gentlemen that live down there regularly. I asked for a regular count of kind of who's in Chaska. And I came up with, he and I came up with 5. Somebody else told me 21. And I'm like, are you sure people weren't down looking at the fall colors of the trees? Because that seemed like a lot more than what I typically know of. I don't do a food route because I don't know the pathways to get there, but I check up and make sure everybody can come up and have food if they want it up at our facility.
And when you're saying down by the river, are you thinking more in the park on the south side of the river or on this side of the river?
This side of the river, there is homeless people that regularly live, but I don't know the access points, but at the end of, like down by Walnut, at the end, then there's a small group that live between Chaska and Carver, and then there's another group that live between, on the other side of Carver.
There's a bench that exists in between Carver and Chaska that I've seen as an access point. So it's sort of smack dab in between the two.
I think the end of Walnut, I guess that kind of surprises me, at the end of Walnut. There's not much there.
But that's where the people that were helping me navigate to do a count, because you know that we do that annual count, point in time, and so that was just something that, the pit count they call it, so we were just trying to count up what we knew of. And then I think there's some people that transient through behind the McDonald's over off of Chaska Boulevard, is that the road? And then behind, there's a regular person that we help feed that lives up behind Cooper's. Is there like a wooded area up? So The way we treat that is we just invite people to come down if they're hungry, to come get something. I do have a gentleman that regularly eats from our garbage and thanks me on his voicemail, so I think there might be some mental health. We've all offered services. The county, they've met with many of these clients, trying to address them and get them into what I call the funnel. That picture that I had up there, the funnel, that's my, and so we want to get them in because they're definitely qualifying for services. We just want to make sure, so we try and offer food as a way to come on in and have a conversation. But I'm seeing that next step up with the bank teller. That one really caught me off guard. Bank teller, her husband and her 2 children, and they were not evicted, but removed because they were in an income restricted housing and they made $300 too much.
Oh.
So then they became homeless. And so, and they were not aware of services that we could have. There's a phenomenal prevention account in Carver County, I mean, that other counties don't have. So it's awesome to be able, that's the first thing I ask is, where do you live? Carver County, awesome, let's go to the CDA, get the funding and fill out the forms. And it's so awesome because the utility company will notify us who's near shut-off and we can reach out to them. Let's fill out the forms. So it's a wonderful system, except when you get to the bottom of the funnel, then it's where it becomes visible. So that's where we're trying to put the students up. Like I said, I have 3 students that the school has notified me about, so we put those students up with our money. And veterans that haven't been able to access the system yet, we put them up with our discretionary money. So that's just what we try and triage, I call it.
I just wanted to kind of understand, I just needed to understand this a little better, because I just heard about the tents, and I wonder how does that work as we move in to our next climate, you know?
Exactly.
And that's what does that still continue to happen?
I had a man and a wife that just are getting evicted tomorrow in the house today, and they said, I guess we can go to a tent. And so, of course, I offer Minneapolis shelter system. Let's Uber you down. Let's get this. But the shelters downtown typically won't take somebody from another county, or it's at 9:30 at night you can ask if there's an opening. And so this is an older couple, and they were choosing the tent over trying to navigate Minneapolis at 9:30 at night. But we did call Adult Shelter Connect while they were sitting there. So that's, so if it does become more visible, that's where we're at. I just don't have, unless you pay a lot of money to come to my sleep out, then we'll have the discretionary fund too. See, I tied it all back together.
All right, sorry, I kind of hogged it. Anyone else got any questions for Martha?
No? Okay, cool. I'll see you all there. I'll send something out on social media. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else here that would like to speak under visitor presentation?
Yes, I would.
Oh, hi. Can I get your name and address for our records, please?
Me?
Yes.
Me? Yes, I'm Prince. I live 1601 Bealoit Avenue, number 12, Los Angeles, California, 90025.
Okay.
Okay, I've been talking to somebody in Minnesota. I went to a movie, Rain. In 2016, I almost died out there. I was sick after I got admitted. The sheriff responded, Carver County, and they thought I was dead. But anyway, my family was rescued, brought me back to Los Angeles. So, I'm looking at the media, a lot of people thought I passed that day.
Wait, you're saying that you're Prince?
I'm Prince. You guys, they thought I died in 2016. But I live out here in Los Angeles.
We're having huge delays in the audio, so it's very challenging to understand.
I said, I'm still alive. I was very sick in 2016 when I was out there after I got off the lift. But I am okay. I was taken back to Los Angeles after the sheriff, Parker County Sheriff responded to the Prince estate.
Okay, and what can we do for you?
Well, I've been trying to contact people. I call sheriff department, police report. I let them know that I'm not dead and that I went home the next day. So there was a probate case about my music and everything. So I really needed to talk to like city council about. I don't know what to do about the fans, and I don't know what to do about the probate case where they thought I died and tried to steal my music and my royalties.
Yeah, well, everything, everything that happened, happened in the city of Chanhassen, not the city of Chaska. So we really don't have anything or a whole lot of knowledge other than what the media put out. So we don't, we couldn't really, we don't have a lot we can help you with.
I'd also suggest it's not the city of Chanhassen as much as the Carver County Prosecutor's Office.
Okay. Do I have fans out there? Were you guys okay? I saw a lot of people when they did it with the guy. Thank everybody lined up for my funeral. So I just wanted to let them know I'm still alive. You guys got my address and just if anybody comes to me, let them know I'm still around. I live out now.
All right, well, appreciate your message, and everybody that's listening's got your message, so thank you. And good luck on what you're trying to get done through the Carver County Attorney's Office.
All right, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else under visitor presentation? Kevin, you got anybody?
Nope. Okay, that's it.
All right, we will move on then at this point, and we'll move to item 7, which is consent. Again, these are items that need our approval, but not necessarily a conversation, but any and all can be pulled for a conversation if necessary. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or anything that needs to be discussed on its consent? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved on consent.
Motion by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Grau to approve consent. Discussion.
I would say the only thing with item E, I don't know how much communication to the general public there are. There's a lot of buzz about, now that the site's being graded and everything with Costco, about traffic flow patterns and whatnot. I don't know if we can kind of pull a bit of communication out just to say,
Yeah,
like, it fits.
Kevin and I were talking about today, what I gather is it's more concerns about people's concerns about future traffic conditions.
Right.
Feeling that the roundabout isn't going to be sufficient
Right.
For it. I guess the only thing I can say is, we always watch projects after they occur. We feel very confident with the traffic analysis that was done
Right.
On Highway 41, and so I get that there's naturally an inclination to think that multiple lanes are going to handle traffic better, but sometimes efficiency comes through trying to get things into a single lane, especially if it flows good. So we don't have concerns about the traffic, but certainly, keep an eye on things after we do that. So.
Yeah, I just thought maybe just like communication, just the general public, that we reviewed everything and felt that it checked all the boxes.
Or even just like a little graphic of what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
Because I think some people don't even know there's gonna be a roundabout
No.
and stuff, so I think they're just,
Okay.
I think can be a simple communication
Yeah.
to say, so people know. It has to be any extravagant.
Okay.
Sorry, not to.
No, that just kind of added to it, so.
No, it's been kind of one of them, everyone's been waiting for it, now it's happening, and now it's like, oh, it's
Oh my
happening.
gosh, yeah.
So it's, and
Well, now
I get
that
it,
Duncan is
and this
open,
all
we
just
can talk.
happened, last Friday, real late, that it really all came to life, and they were out there Tuesday. Was
Tuesday,
it Monday?
yeah.
Well, they were out there, they must have had the equipment out there running when it got passed and started heading that way,
It's
so.
amazing, just in one day today, how much grading occurred.
Oh, they are moving dirt today,
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
get out there today.
Big time.
Okay, so, I do agree, I think that this is a project we're gonna have to stay on top of as far as communications and keep putting things out, and, you know, it seems like we've talked a lot about that being a roundabout, but it's just a matter of
Well,
who's-
people don't know
know.
until, yeah.
Until it's
I just-
happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's something to point to, I guess.
Yep.
Yep.
No, we can do that.
All right, anything else, anyone? All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. All right, moves us to 8A, which is adopt resolution 2022 -129, extension of power sales agreement with Minnesota Municipal Power Agency.
Mayor and Councilmember, the item in front of you tonight is something we've actually addressed multiple times in the past. Since 1995, the city of Chaska, along with, well, in 1995, it was 7 other utilities. Now it's 11 other utilities that are part of MMPA, entered into an agreement to formally adopt or create MMPA. Since that point, even though we started as more of just a wholesale purchaser of power off of the grid and then resold it, we've become a much more robust organization since that time, building and owning a number of assets that help us control our pricing and help us meet our renewable goals, all kinds of things, with the ultimate goal of not only having reliable electricity, but electricity that's competitive with our market, which is Excel. So I sort of put in the history of the different times that we've gone through and actually extended the contract, and the contract extensions have been associated with being able to finance equipment. So typically the equipment that, or assets that we build are typically 30-year type of financing tools. Usually the actual equipment is 50 to 60 years in length. And so in order for those projects to be able to be financed, they need to be backed up by people actually saying that they're going to buy the electricity, so that there's ways to pay that off. And so that's where the member cities of the power agency go out and try to match the terms of their purchase power agreements with the actual terms of debt that's coming up. So the purpose of this extension, we haven't dealt with this since 2014. The purpose of this would be to give us the ability over the next 5 to 6 years to be able to do the projects that we're planning on and be able to put in place the financing tools to be able to have that 30-year debt. So that's just sort of a general overview of it, but I do have David Niles and Anjo Ayer here from Avant Energy, who are our staff for MMPA, and they're going to give a short presentation to sort of talk about what's going on.
All right. Well, good evening and thank you. Yeah, my name's David Niles, and I think the last time I was before this council was in 2014, as Matt was talking about. I'm with Avant Energy along with Anju. I'm a senior vice president. Anju's the chief operating officer. I've been working with Avant on MMPA matters for more than 20 years now, Anju for more than 24. And And I see a blank screen. But what we wanted to do tonight is go through the presentation briefly that we gave at the MMU, at our annual meeting up in Anoka, Minnesota back in July. And I know we were very pleased to have some of you here. Did I hit the wrong button?
No, hey, sometimes.
Said nothing, no cable connected.
Yeah,
Just popped up.
we have fun with the equipment we have.
Technology's always great when it works.
Somebody messed
There we go.
Okay, so this is Plan B, so just tell me next slide.
Oh, okay.
I'll have it.
All right. So again, a couple of the graphs you're going to see, this is the presentation as it was presented back in July. So a few of the statistics and graphs are going to be a little out of date now, but we'll talk through any differences. So moving on to the next slide. So I'll go through talking about MMPA's mission, who we are, our history, and what we've done, and then Anju will talk about the current business environment we're in and MMPA's plans for the future. So moving ahead, and so MMPA's mission is two parts really. It's to provide power that's reliable and to provide power that's competitively priced. And we'll talk about how the different facets of our portfolio do that. And it's also to create value for the agency and its members. Moving on. So these are the 12 MMPA communities, the member communities. So you can see sort of typically third-tier suburbs and then heading off to the south and west. And then we have East Grand Forks up there on the North Dakota border as well. So a nice mix of sort of suburban and more rural communities, sort of medium-sized and smaller-sized communities, but a really great group of people moving forward. So MMPA was founded in 1992 by 8 former Xcel Energy customers. Chaska was one of the founding members. We're thrilled about that. We began operations in 1995. East Grand Forks and Shakopee joined in 2004, and the following year Buffalo joined. Our newest member, Elk River, joined in 2013. And in 2020, we were planning on having a big celebration of a quarter century of success, and then the pandemic happened. So this was our first back to in-person dinner meeting in one of our member communities. And so this is really where we're celebrating that quarter century of success and trying to show what your ratepayers' funds have helped build in terms of a resource portfolio that MMPA has now. Moving on. So this graph shows the agency's growth from 1995 through 2021. And you can see there were a couple of big spikes when we added new members, but also even during the times when we weren't adding members, our communities are still growing, and Chaska is absolutely one of those communities. Housing still being built, businesses still moving in, and so we have growth both from new membership, but also that organic growth from within our communities, and that helps us continue to deliver competitively priced power. On to the next slide. Matt talked about competitive rates and how we benchmark against Xcel. This goes back to 1998 as far as we could pull the records. And what this shows, MMPA is the green line, Xcel's the red line, and that in every year but about 2, our rates were at least equal with, and in most cases quite a bit below those of Xcel. And that time period when it was higher was 2007, 2008, the last time the natural gas prices went very high. We're in a similar environment now, but we've assembled a much broader and more diversified set of power supply resources since that time. So even though you can see that we've had the spike from 2020 to 2021, and you'll see another graph in a minute showing 2022 year to date, we've been able to maintain and in fact amplify that distance between us and our competition. Moving forward. So I want to just talk briefly about how our capacity and energy portfolio has transitioned in the last quarter century. When MMPA was formed in 1995, all of our power supply resources were coal-based. We had contracts with a couple of different other utilities for shares of their coal-generating resources. By 2005, we put in 2 natural gas resources. Coal was starting to phase out. We also had brought some hydro into the portfolio. We continued to expand our natural gas presence in 2010, and coal was continuing to phase out. By 2015, we had coal out of our portfolio. Had some market purchases, and then the sort of the more recent thing, the column on the very right is 2023. That's our projection for next year. And what you can see is in those last 3 chunks, in 2015, 2020, and then into 2023, renewable energy is an increasingly a large portion of our portfolio on a capacity basis. And when we go to the next slide, looking at it on an energy basis, you see this even more broadly. So natural gas is the orange at the bottom, black is the coal, purple is market purchases. So even though we own these resources, oftentimes it's less expensive, it is cheaper to buy energy in the wholesale markets, and so we do that instead of running our generators if it makes economic sense and is better for our ratepayers, going towards that mission of competitively priced power. And so you can see we've had a lot of market purchases even into 2020. The addition of that renewable energy, I'll talk about the newest wind farm we have coming on next month, is going to really increase the percentage of renewable energy, and we're going to project it to be about 42% renewable in 2023. Moving on. So this shows our power supply broken into two pieces. We have our conventional resources, which really address the reliability issue, and then we have our renewable resources, which help us control price, going towards that competitive price piece of our mission. And so we have three resources. We have the Minnesota River Station, Faribault Energy Park, and Shakopee Energy Park, all gas resources, very reliable, dispatchable, able to turn them on when we want. And then you can see, again, starting in 2011 and several times since then, we've added renewable resources to our portfolio, helping reduce our carbon exposure and also reducing our fossil fuel price risk. So these renewable resources are either zero variable cost or a fixed contract price. And so when natural gas prices or oil prices go up, we continue buying that renewable energy at that same price. And that's an important part of our risk management portfolio. So just to talk about those resources real briefly on the next slide. I just want to, again, show you sort of the resources that MMPA has built over the past quarter century. You guys probably know about this. It's right here in our community, in your community. It's the Minnesota River Station. It's a 49 megawatt gas turbine. It's a peaking plant, meaning it's intended to run on the hottest days of the year. It doesn't run very regularly. It's owned by Chaska and leased to MMPA until 2031, and then we have a series of options out to 2051. And we're actually investing in a new combustion chamber in this turbine that's going to get put in next spring, which means we expect to fully be able to use this resource all the way through to 2051 and keep local generation in the community. The next slide is about the Faribault Energy Park. That's our largest asset in our portfolio. It's about 300 megawatts. Combined cycle, meaning it takes natural gas, burns it in sort of a jet engine, and then takes the hot air coming off the back end and uses it to convert water into steam and turn another turbine, so it's more efficient. It's a fast starting plant, high availability. These are all good things when the entity that runs sort of the power grid in the whole Midwestern area, it means they call us to run sooner than other generators, which means we're creating profits to help reduce our rates. It's also the center of MMPA's energy education program. And I just want to pause and go on to the next slide here for a minute on our energy education program. So for 10 years now, we've been doing a program with fourth graders. MMPA pays the cost. We bus the kids typically down to Faribault Energy Park. We also will come into the schools themselves if they can't make it down for whatever reason. It's aligned with the fourth grade science standards. We partner with the Science Museum. 20,000 students have participated in the last decade. And I know that Chaska has been a very active participant in that. We've recently expanded it to a high school program at our Shakopee Energy Park, where we go more in depth and we engage in career paths. And we like to tell people there's paths with a 4-year college degree that have great careers in energy, but there's also trade school paths where you can become a line worker and still earn a great living. Moving on to Shakopee Energy Park, as I mentioned, the newest part of our conventional portfolio. It's a 46 megawatt natural gas fueled facility just across the river, uses liquefied natural gas as a backup fuel, and was recognized as Power Magazine 2017 Plant of the Year Award. Moving quickly through our renewable assets, Oakland Wind Farm is a 44 megawatt wind farm in Blooming Prairie, Minnesota. Next we have Hometown Bioenergy, a real innovative 8 megawatt biogas project. This project takes agricultural processing wastes, corn silage, pork products, potato peelings, vegetable canning wastes. They go into those two big green tanks you can see there. Those are the digesters. The microbes do their thing, turn it into gas. We clean up that gas and run it in electric generators on site. Those three big white, we call them bubbles almost, is gas storage. So unlike most renewable energy where you only get it when the wind blows or the sun shines, there we can store the gas and dispatch it and run the plant when we want the renewable energy. The next one is Black Oak Wind Farm, a 78 megawatt wind farm near in Stearns County near Sauk Center. Then we've got the Buffalo Solar Farm in the MMPA member community of Buffalo, 7 megawatts of solar a couple miles north of town. And then our newest renewable asset is the Walleye Wind Farm in Rock County, right on the South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa border where they all come together. 110 megawatt wind farm. This was a couple of the board members and myself at the groundbreaking back in June. It's under construction now and expected to be in service in December, so by the end of the year. And that'll be over 400,000 megawatt hours or 400 million kilowatt hours of renewable energy going into our portfolio for next year. So moving on, I want to talk just briefly about some financial results, a few graphs here. So first I want to show you net income. We've had strong net income over the past 6 years in excess of $10 million each year. And that net income, moving on, translates to a healthy cash position. So you can see our cash balance has been in excess of $35 million in each of these years. And there's been some up and downs. And when we move to the next slide, you can see what we've done with that cash is we've reduced our debt by $140 million. So 2016 was the last time we issued debt to build the plant in Shakopee I showed you. We were at about $320 million at the end of that year. At the end of 2021, we were at about $180 million, a decrease of $140 million. And having less debt into the future means fewer streams of payments, lower costs means lower rates, all else being equal. And so that's an important part. And then moving on one more, we've done all that while maintaining rates below those of our competition. We've paid off debt. We've helped build the portfolio of resources you saw. This goes back to 2016. And you can see there's about a $5 a megawatt hour gap growing in 2021 to almost a $10 gap. And even into 2022, this was the first 6 months when prices continued to rise, and we're cognizant of that. But we've maintained our competitive advantage, and we're very proud of that. So moving on here is where I will turn it over to Anju to talk about the current business environment and our plans for the future. And we'll take questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have to say, moving on to the next slide? Okay. Got it.
Or next slide.
Or next slide works, okay. Needless to say, we have to assess the business environment that we're operating under in order to chart a path for the future. In this graph, we're going to cover the natural gas prices. Since the beginning of 2020, natural gas is a fairly important input into electricity production today, so it's important to understand what the prices of natural gas are doing. You can see natural gas prices hovered around $2 to $3 range until February 2021. In February of 2021, we had Winter Storm Uri, and then everything took off, and you see the prices are off the chart there.
That was the big Texas event.
Yeah, big Texas event. We did have some impacts here as well, not as bad as what happened in Texas, obviously, but the prices did normalize and came back under the $3 mark fairly quickly after the event. However, the post-COVID recovery, as well as the war in Ukraine, took over, and then the dynamics are as such. The rally in natural gas prices took prices above $9 before it started tapering off. But historically speaking, these prices are pretty high prices. Next slide, please. Inflation also is at the forefront of our lives. Every page we turn, we hear about inflation. Inflation hovered around 1 to 2%, 3% range for quite a while until recently, and you could see it topped off at 9%. I think currently we're at 8.2%. Still historically pretty high numbers. Next slide, please. This is an interesting graph. We have a couple of points we want to make about this graph. This shows the interest rates. The blue line represents the 1-year U.S. Treasury. The 10-year U.S. Treasury is represented by the red line, and then the green line represents the 30-year U.S. Treasuries. The first point I want to make is that the interest rates have recovered and went beyond the pre-COVID levels. Again, and as David was mentioning, this graph is from July of 2022, and the interest rates are well above these levels right now. The second thing that's interesting to note is that what we call basis, which is the distance or the difference between the blue line and the red line, and the red line and the green line, have shrunk completely. So interest rates have all merged. Next slide, please. We also experienced an economic contraction recently. Prior to the first quarter of this year, we had pretty robust economic growth, as you can see in 2020 and 2021. In the first quarter of this year, we had 1.6% economic contraction, and I think the second quarter of this year was 0.6% economic contraction. Next slide, please. Oop, I think we got stuck. Okay, so these are pretty important things to sort of understand the macro environment and the picture we want to draw as we're trying to assess what our plans are for the future. Now, our plans for the future consist of adding large-scale solar. These are going to be solar facilities that are going to be likely 50 megawatts or larger, and they're going to be connected to transmission. And then we have smaller scale solar facilities that will be probably smaller than 50 megawatts and interconnecting with our member communities on their distribution systems. We're going to continue to operate Minnesota River Station, Faribault Energy Park, and Shakopee Energy Park. These are our 3 natural gas-fired assets, as David mentioned. And we will pursue fueling these assets with renewable natural gas. Next slide, please. As David was mentioning, MMPA is in a pretty unique position because it has an operating biogas facility in one of its member communities today. It's this in the city of Le Sueur. It's the hometown bioenergy facility. Today, as David was mentioning, this facility takes in agricultural and food processing wastes and then turns it into natural gas.
Some of it's from Chaska, the potato peelings.
Yeah,
Right.
Michael's Foods.
Yep.
And then they go into 4 2-megawatt reciprocating engines, and these turn into electricity, electrons that get injected into the city of Le Sueur distribution system. Our plans as of the second half of this year is to convert this facility to a renewable natural gas facility by cleaning up the biogas to pipeline quality gas. And we would be selling this natural gas into RNG markets, or we're going to use it as fuel at our natural gas-fired plants in Minnesota River Station, Faribault Energy Park, and Shakopee Energy Park. And our plan is to develop more RNG facilities in the future. Next slide, please.
So one real quick thing about that. If the prices are going to be high, control your prices by controlling the raw market. I mean, that to me, it's very different than how we started out the Le Sueur bioenergy plant, because that was to make electricity. But seeing the prices of natural gas go up and then all of a sudden recognizing that, hey, we have a huge asset that we make natural gas. And not only do we make it, but we can make it renewable. So it's, it's a renewable asset that we can control our own prices. We can either sell it if the market is really good, or if we can produce it and provide it to ourselves for less than what the market would give us, then it becomes something to control our prices. So, it sounds simple, but I think one of the things that to me really stands out is that this has been sort of the history of MMPA, is looking at those opportunities that pop up and saying, okay, this may not be the greatest time right now, but how do we look at the opportunities that pop out of this and do things that maybe if it wasn't a good time, we wouldn't be thinking about, and then being able to turn it into a real positive. So I've been involved long enough now for myself, 15 years, but seeing it through the whole 20-some years I've been here, it's consistently sort of been that way, where it's taking through these opportunities and how do we use that to better ourselves into the future.
For MMPA to achieve its long-term vision and to execute on its plans, member contract extensions are pretty important. Most member contracts today run till 2050, being in 2022. That gives us 28 years and it limits the debt term to 28 years. And extended contracts till 2060 provide the flexibility that MMPA needs to issue 30-year debt. This would also help keep member rates competitive. Next slide, please. So MMPA's position is great. It has a quarter century of success. It's going to be 42% renewable next year when its most recent asset, which is going to be Walleye Wind, comes online. Its rates are below Xcel Energy. It has a fairly unique approach for the future power supply, and we intend to continue to have competitive rates. And extended contracts will help keep these rates competitive. That concludes our presentation. Dave and I are happy to take any questions if you have them.
Questions, anyone?
Just one question. You mentioned the biofuel plant in Le Sueur. How much capacity do we have, or are we using of the potential capacity that's there for producing biogas?
Today, in biogas terms, we are making over 300,000 MMBTUs. I'm not sure that means anything, but we're generating, basically, we're at full capacity today.
In terms of the generation of electricity, it sounds like you're.
Yes,
generation of electricity.
that gas goes into become electricity today, and those electrons, it's 8 megawatts is a total facility.
But then in terms of the actual production of gas that could be resold for, to other users, is that at capacity, or are we consuming 100% of that? Or because it sounded like you hinted at being able to resell some of that gas as a raw material to someone else.
So the plan would be to probably stop making electricity because we think the gas has more value than the electricity right now. So yeah, so as Andrew said, the plant is pretty much at throughput, full capacity in terms of its gas generation capability. And instead of running that sort of biogas, we clean it up into pipeline quality gas and push it out on the system, and we can sell that clean gas for a premium price.
But you wouldn't be able to make any more gas than what's being made there now.
Not without additional capital
Yeah,
investments at the
I
site.
think that's the question you were
Oh,
asking.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you operating
At full capacity
Yes.
today, we are.
We are.
And so given that, is there thought around, expanding capacity because it's a lucrative asset? It was a lucrative commodity that could be resold.
It's definitely something
It's
that's been
something we
under
talk about
evaluation,
from time to
yes.
time, yes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you could, I knew that it generated electricity. I didn't realize we could just sell the gas, so that's.
We didn't know that till recently either.
Oh, so I'm not in the dark of that,
No,
because
that's
when
been
we
a
were at
very
the meeting,
recent,
I don't remember us talking,
it
did we
was,
talk about it there?
we had just started talking about it.
Ah,
It's a much newer product than renewable electricity, so.
yeah, and with natural gas that high, yeah, it probably is better.
Yeah, like I said, sometimes bad times create creative solutions.
So I know it's complicated for other cities with their contracts with Excel or other power utilities, but are there any other potential members coming into the co-op? Like, is that something that?
So, I mean, the electric utility industry sort of by its nature lends to long-term agreements, which makes it challenging to pick up new members because usually cities are committed for similar lengths like you guys are with MMPA, which we're thrilled about. But there have been opportunities. I mean, you've seen we've added some members. So Buffalo continued to buy from Excel until 2005. East Grand Forks was actually buying from us as a customer and then sort of made the jump into buying as a member. Elk River was buying from a co-op, and when they switched over to us, so they signed in 2013, but again, because things in the electric utility industry take a long time, they didn't start buying power from us until 2018 because contracts have long notices. They were able to reduce their rates 4% when they switched power suppliers to us, so it was very popular in the city. We continue to be out there talking to people. There are a few sort of independent cities. One of the things I think that's made MMPA so successful over the past quarter century is that we're very good at keeping all of the members' interests aligned. Some of the people who might be out there who could maybe join are cities who have more substantial generation in town that they own themselves. And the MMPA member communities don't own generation, so MMPA owns the Chaska owns the turbine, but from an economic standpoint, MMPA has all the risks and costs associated with it. And so I think that sort of alignment of interests is really good. And so I think in terms of looking at other cities or utilities that would sort of fit that profile, there might be one or two, but I wouldn't expect to see new members in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
But we're always out there looking for opportunities. So.
Sure. It just seems like such a no-brainer, but.
Yeah, it's so difficult. And the reason it's so difficult is because you have territories out there that are protected by the PUC. And so, it's not like you could go over into Victoria or, Waconia and say, come on over with us, because whoever owns that territory is going to have some say about that. So you really have to get those people who aren't associated with a co-op, so like Minnesota Valley is a co-op, or who aren't wrapped up with an investor owned like Excel.
Sure.
Yeah, and for the same reason what we're doing tonight, it's long-term agreements,
Yes.
that we have to, I get it. It's protection for you, but it's also protection for us. It's a two-way
Absolutely.
street,
Yeah.
you know.
And it, the thing that I also, I can say just by the monthly meetings we have, I mean, the group is laser focused on how do you keep, three things are probably the main focus we have is how do we make sure we're reliable? That's absolutely number one. Number two, and it's very close, is how do we keep competitive rates? But then the third one that's become a really big issue because our customers are really starting to demand it is the renewable side. That people have an expectation that those are things that utilities are doing. And we see it especially from some of our larger industrial customers. So for instance, the data center we're working with, they're very interested in seeing that we have a higher percentage of renewable assets, because when you have somebody that's using a lot of electricity, they become big targets for people to go after to say, hey, if you're using that much electricity, you should be using renewable electricity.
How many people in the city of Chaska sign up to have a portion or all of their power? You know, there's the option where
The
you-
$3?
Yeah, do you know?
Yeah, so it's,
Is it
it
what?
was like 6%.
Oh, how many? Is that the question?
Yeah, percentage.
Yeah, it's about 6% of residential customers. Chaska is.
We're
got
number
the-
one.
They've got the highest rate of customers among all the 12 members, so. And just going back to Matt's point about the renewable aspect, and more it's becoming a very simple sort of answer from an economic standpoint as well, because as I was saying earlier, wind, solar, once you've made the capital investment, the variable cost is zero. And so when you have price spikes in natural gases like that graph Anju showed you, you're very happy to have those renewable energy assets as a part of your portfolio from an economic standpoint as well as a carbon standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I see it in like a generational shift as well, as more and more younger generations are owning houses. It is becoming an expectation of green. I work for a company that works with a lot of energy, and that's, important for us to be investing in green initiatives as well, because, customers, candidates want to know that, when you're hiring people, like, what are you doing in this sector? And so it's not just it sounds good to say you're using renewable energy, but it really is a popular movement and belief, and you control your destiny a little bit with, as you talked about, with some of those assets being defined and not fluctuate on market.
To me, that's been the big shift that I've seen over the last 10 years, is it used to be people did it because it felt better. Now they're doing it because it economically makes more sense.
And that's one of the benefits of joint action as well, is that Chaska has a seat at the table. Unlike if you're buying from an investor-owned utility next door, you get whatever they decide to build, but Chaska's is one of the 12 voices at that table and getting to provide input and make decisions on how the agency's funds are going to be invested and what generation assets we're going to invest in.
Yeah, I appreciate the numbers, and we talk about up here about the rates being cheaper than Excel all the time, and I think it's easy for us to say, and I think sometimes people forget, and I like saying that message again, because most people probably, unless you own several properties and outside of here, you're only paying one bill, right? And that's the bill right now, you're all like, I don't want to pay that bill, right? But it's a good reminder, like, yep, you're not getting that other bill that would be higher, because I think it's easy just to say, well, my bill's too high. And it is, obviously things have gone up, but it is still kind of that competitive advantage with Excel, which I think is important for people to understand, and is a benefit of living in Chaska.
And I think sort of what they're showing too is the more that we can control, the better that's going to get.
Are you seeing, we talked to the data center, are you seeing increases where the data centers come in? I mean, I think obviously this one that's being proposed could show a substantial increase in volume, right?
Oh, absolutely. It would be a bigger than any, so if they get to the maximum loads they're talking about, they'd be bigger than any whole city in the agency. In fact, bigger than many of them put together. Yeah. And I mean, just to plug MMPA a little, and that's what I'm here to do, MMPA has been involved in those discussions trying to help bring that customer here as well. And so that's, again.
They wouldn't be talking to us if it wasn't for MMPA. And I'm confident of that because we have a program, it's a tariff called the
Mission transformed.
Whatever they said.
Whatever they say. But it's a tariff that the agency has that allows us to address the needs of those really high-use customers like that. There is no way that if we provided the same type of service, it's a different type of user. We wouldn't even be at the table. But just the fact that MMPA has that tariff, it's something they've created across the agency. All of our agency members are going to be better for it, including Chaska, and it's something that, you know, if we want to be competitive, we have to be able to do stuff differently.
You know, I think that this is really a good conversation to have, that, you know, hopefully people that are watching it now kind of understand our power system. We talk about that we have our own power company, and, you know, Matt talks about, you know, we probably wouldn't be where we are with the data center, but it's also that we have our own, you know, utility company, and our people know the system.
Absolutely.
You know, if I worked in St. Louis Park when we had an outage, you didn't know where the crews were coming from, and they had to search around for things. It's such a difference when our own folks are the guys doing it. They generally know, they probably know where the problem areas might lie.
Well, last Friday, we had somebody
outage.
bore right into one of our main lines underground. That would normally be a really tough thing to find, but, you know, our guys know the system, and they know where it was. They were able to divert around that section, so they didn't fix the problem right away, but they diverted around it so that the problem was solved for people within 45 minutes. Now, it took them longer to fix it, but they know the system so that they can get that electricity up and running as quick as possible.
But it goes back to the reliability part, that the power was restored quickly.
Yep.
You know, even though they still had to repair, and then they do their underground magic, whatever they do to fix that stuff. But I honestly, I think as a suggestion, that it might not be a bad thing for you guys to come and speak to the councils in the cities every couple of years, to come in and have it, like you said, you haven't been here since 2014. And if I remember right, in 2014, we had a big debate about whether or not we should be allowing an extension that long. That seemed to be out there. But I think that this is good for all here to understand how important it is, and that we need those long-term contracts. It's beneficial to MMPA, which then becomes beneficial to all of its members, us included. So I think that it might not be, you know, you talk about educating the fourth graders. It's not a bad thing to come back here and educate our public as well, that about who and what MMPA is and what we're doing. And just, I mean, I've seen these graphs many times, but it's still amazing to see what, you know, and we're part of this. We are a founding member of it. So I just think that there might be something for you guys to look at and continue doing as you move forward, but maybe every couple of years. I don't know if you have to come yearly, but I think every couple of years might not be a bad thing.
We'd be happy to do that, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's, you know, you guys are making big strides here in what the overall, the wind farms you're adding and all the renewable energy. You know, every couple of years, there might be big changes, so I think it's a good thing.
Yep. I think that there's a couple of things that, you know, we don't often talk about, and, you know, one of them we just talked about, we touched on, was that competitive advantage, right? Because, you know, I think when we talk about competitive advantages as a community, oftentimes it's focused on the residents in terms of, well, we have those great trails and biking and roads and all those other things, but, you know, that a lot of those things have to be funded from someplace, but the economics in the back end are things that people don't necessarily understand or know about. It's kind of this black magic to them. But having that information, understand that, hey, you know, the fact is that through this partnership we have, you know, lower cost of power. It also helps to fund other city services and offset cost. That's a win-win on both sides of the balance sheet for us, and that's a huge thing. And you know, part of it's it's kind of incumbent upon us as a community to help get that word out too of the why we're doing this, and to show, hey, you know what, you know, this is a win for us as a community. And also that when we talk about, you know, power, we often very much focus in terms of like our teams, the line crews that go out, and how we like deal with power and how we have, distribution of like, LED bulbs and things like that. But we probably should talk more about the fact that we are investing in renewables, and that's something that, again, goes back to the competitive advantage that leads us to get these larger customers who we can sell to, but also help our tax base and, help our community for other things. So, it's not just to get a large data center customer for the sake of getting a data center customer. There's an economic benefit to it too. So, I think that understanding in that broader sense, that macro sense, is really important to us as a community, because that means as community members and as constituents, as voters, we are able to make better decisions about what we're doing because of things like this. So I think that's important that we get that word out there. Absolutely.
All right, anyone else? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate
Thank you very much for your time.
Giving us a quick electric 101.
So as you can see, the action that we're recommending is to adopt Resolution 2022-129, which would extend that power purchase agreement from October 31st, 2050 to October 31st of 2060, and then authorizing the mayor and myself to be able to execute that.
Any questions regarding the agreement? That's really what we're focusing on now. Does seem challenging to think that we're signing an agreement that will affect people a long ways out in front of us, but hearing why, it totally makes sense to me. And I fully support it, so.
I think now we also have 8 years additional track record because, the agency is that much older, so that
Right,
it's a
exactly.
much longer track record to go on.
And it's still all been good, so it'll stay that way. All right, any further discussion? Somebody willing to make a motion one way or another?
So moved.
Okay, so I assume you're
Make a motion to
making a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-129, which is extension of the power sales agreement with Minnesota Municipal Power Agencies.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Hatfield. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night. All right, we
By the
moved-
way, those two are really smart.
Wait till they leave. They are, I will agree. All right, adopt resolution 2022-125, ordinances 1022 and 1023, approving final site and building plan and zoning ordinance amendments for Hazeltine Plaza Apartments.
Mayor, Councilmember, this is an item coming from the Planning Commission with recommendation for approval. This is an apartment project that we've been looking at that would basically be on the east side of the Coles site in the parking lot area, currently a parking lot area that is adjacent to Hunter Mark Road. I'll turn it over to Liz.
Yes.
I'll turn it over to Liz to go over the staff report.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. We have a final site and building plan and a few zoning ordinance amendments for the Hazeltine Plaza Apartments being proposed by Trident Development. The site that this project is locating in is the last vacant site or lot within Hazeltine Plaza Commercial District. So this commercial district contains Kohl's, Park Dental, Aldi's, Chipotle, Starbucks, and McDonald's. And this is the last and easternmost lot of that development. We also have a couple golf courses that flank some of the sides of this lot, which would be Hazeltine National Golf Club and then the Loop Golf Course, as well as additional multifamily residential on the west side across from Highway 41. So we're at the third and final step in the process. And the approvals that have taken place up to this point, the first step, which was concept plan approval, was done back in March of this year. And then in August, they came back with their preliminary site and building plan and a zoning ordinance amendment to the zoning district that they're located in, which is PCD 15. That amendment included the inclusion of multifamily residential within this PCD 15 zoning district. Just to recap some of the commentary that came out of that preliminary stage, at that time, the developer and applicant was requesting for utility brick to be accepted as a Class 1 material on their project for their 4-story apartment building. During that time, there was support received from the commissions to be able to accept utility brick as a Class 1 material for this building, and specifically within this commercial zoning district, being that it has already been used on some of the buildings within Hazeltine Plaza. So there was consistency there that they saw, that we saw as being acceptable for this project. Also during that time, we did note that a zoning ordinance amendment would need to happen for the utility brick to be able to be allowed on this building. We also noted that either zoning ordinance amendments or variances would need to be sought after since the project did not meet the building setbacks and the Florida area ratio standards that are noted within the PRD standards of the zoning code. During that time, we did receive a lot of support and positive feedback about the project from council as well as Planning Commission, in that the project should be processed as it was proposed due to the fact that the design and the scale fits within the commercial district that it's locating in. There was also a desire expressed to pursue a solution other than a variance if possible. So because of that feedback that we received during that preliminary stage, we're coming forward with this final to recommend a more narrow or tailored ordinance amendment rather than a variance on the building setbacks and Florida area ratio requirement. So getting into the request for this project, there is a final site and building plan being requested, which would be for the market rate 112 unit 4-story apartment building. And then there will be 2 zoning ordinance amendments that are requested this evening. One would be an amendment to the PCD 15 zoning district that would allow for utility brick to be considered a Class 1 material on the 4-story apartment building. And then a zoning ordinance amendment to the zoning code to section 15.16.030 of the PCD portion of the zoning ordinance. There's a section within that that refers back to the PRD development standards for residential uses within PCD districts. So the amendment to that section of the code would eliminate the requirement of PRD building setbacks and the Florida area ratio requirement for residential uses in PCDs. And not that these items would necessarily be eliminated for residential projects within PCDs altogether, rather building setbacks and FAR could be included within the PCD district and development standards that they locate in. The other development standards that stand with residential uses in PCDs also relate to density, lot coverage, building site design, and common open space requirements. Those would still be maintained and apply to residential uses within PCDs. So really, when we talk about a narrow, more tailored approach, we're talking about the 2 items of building setbacks and FAR applicable to residential uses within PCD districts. So to just reference back to how this project fits into the PRD standards regarding building setbacks and Florida area ratio, the building setbacks are dictated either by the height or by 30 feet of setback requirements. So the height of the building is 43 feet. So in essence, they would have to meet a 43-foot setback from their property lines. However, the project is proposing a setback of 20 feet at its lowest end on the western portion of their site. But they do meet the setbacks that are outlined in the PCD 15 zoning code. And then as it relates to Florida area ratio, there's a maximum of 0.5 that's referenced in the PRD development standards, and this proposal is proposing a 0.68. As it relates to the other pieces that we noted, so density, lot coverage, and common open space, they do meet those criteria of the PRD development standards. I'm not going to get into too much detail with the site plan, as not much has changed since preliminary. Probably the biggest change since preliminary approval was they did add a pedestrian connection just west of the breezeway area, which would provide a safer connection for residents utilizing the surface parking lot to cross over to the main entrance. They will be implementing a number of safety measures to make sure this crossing is safe and can be seen by people who are traveling or using their vehicles along this drive aisle here, so in the form of concrete pavement to delineate this crossing, as well as convex mirrors and railing along the pedestrian sidewalks, as well as a speed bump for vehicles coming into the plaza, are just a few of the pieces that they'll be implementing there for safety. The building elevations have also stayed the same since preliminary, again with the utility brick applied here, but they'll be using a mix of LP SmartSide brick and split face block, as well as glass for a majority of the building materials. And then just a couple renderings if we need to refer back to any views. So with that, you're going to be making 3 motions for this project this evening. One motion would be to adopt resolution number 2022-125, which would be approving the final site and building plan for Hazeltine Plaza Apartments, and then based on the conditions that are listed within that resolution. Another motion would be to adopt ordinance number 1022, approving the zoning ordinance amendment to PCD 15, which would allow the utility brick as a Class 1 material for a 4-story apartment building. And then the last motion would be to adopt ordinance number 1023, approving the amendment to section 15.16.030 PCD, part of the zoning code, which would eliminate the PRD development standards such as building setbacks and Florida area ratio for residential uses and PCDs. Happy to answer any questions. We also have the development team here too, if you have specific questions for them. Thank you.
Questions for Liz? Do we have to do the zoning ordinances first?
That'd be a question for Jake, I think.
Yeah, that'd be the best way to handle this. That way those regulations.
Kind of figured that.
ready to go.
They're in a different order. I wanted to make sure that we were doing that properly. Said we've seen this, and this generally would be on consent, but because of the zoning ordinances amendments that we have to bring this back to council. So, were you gonna say something? Sorry.
This is a super quick question. When we were looking at breaking ground on this,
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Planning to have our plans ready for building permit review next month sometime, and probably look at a groundbreaking after the first of the year. Happy to stand for any other questions, too.
thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, I just would say that I'm, excited about this project, continuing to move forward. I think it's a great piece of property. It's got some great connections. You talk about diversity of housing options in the city of Chaska and how continuing to look for those and give options for people who want homeowners and renting and everything like that. this continues to be a healthy mix of projects that we're seeing that kind of achieve that diversity of housing option or life cycle housing options as well. So it continues to support, the belief that I have as a council member of what we should be doing for our community.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that, and also just again encourage that hopefully these will be full-time rent or tenants instead of short-term rentals as far as Airbnbs and things of that nature. So I know I'll be a broken record up here, but
You can address
You
it.
can
though.
address
my
it,
goal
yes.
and wish is for that to be the case.
I was interested in the question you raised about Airbnb, so I posed that to our property management companies. And it was a quick and clear answer, no.
Okay,
Only people occupying those units are the people on the lease.
that makes me feel
End of
really
story.
good.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
We all feel good about that. Thank you.
So that's technically, assuming they have like guests or visitors, like, parents or friends or whatever, staying, that's okay, right?
Yeah, but that has to be cleared through the property management too, so.
Typically, a standard Minnesota lease has outlines, like, I think most say like 3 days. They're gonna be longer than they would staying with you, the tenant, longer. But every lease is different, but that's a pretty standard thing to have in a
So
lease.
it's a standard, because I haven't rented in like, 30 years or 20 years, so, and it's typical lease, so in a lease agreement, they would actually have to like announce to the property management company, hey,
I won't be here, but my friends are watching
Yeah.
the apartment while we're gone. They'll have to,
Right.
clear that with them. And plus, there'll be a strange car using the parking lot, so who is this? Should it be towed? And so those things.
Or someone said, hey, my parents are coming over because they're gonna watch, go golfing or something like that, but they'd have to still be okay with the property.
A day or two isn't gonna matter, but, those extended periods, like you said, after 3 days or so, yeah.
Okay.
Is there, I don't remember, is there an office on site?
There will be a management office, leasing office on site, yes.
Okay. I think whenever you have that, that makes a big difference, because there's
Yeah,
somebody there.
yeah, definitely.
And I would add, I think it's quality product, and I'll go back to, it wasn't my first choice for having the apartment there. I certainly had other, but, I know that Mike has had this property up for sale, lease, whatever, for a long, long time, and I'm happy that it's a very quality project. It'll look very nice. We had some folks worried about the entrance to Hazeltine. I think it'll be a very nice looking building for the entrance to Hazeltine.
We're very excited about it. We've continued to communicate with the Hazeltine National Course. I'll give them another update after tonight's meeting. And we're also finishing up our last revision of the reciprocal easement agreement with Coles. So they've been in communication with us all along too, so we'll have that wrapped up here in the next week or so.
Glad you're working with them as well. I know that there was, took a little bit to get a hold of them, and now I'm glad
Oh,
you're
they're
working
fully
with them.
engaged.
Good.
And opening or targeting,
The construction period would be about 15, 16 months, so spring of '24, thinking? Yeah,
cool,
perfect.
Okay,
great, thank you.
awesome.
I think it's just real quick worth mentioning. There's certain developers that are really good to work with. Roger is one of them. So, I mean,
I was gonna
that's,
say, watch the concept
You're
plan.
supposed to say it after I leave the room.
no,
Watch the meeting from the concept plan for this, and we grilled you for a long time, and you were very gracious.
I just think it's important to say that stuff because he is one of the developers and Mike is the same way, that really gets the vision for the community at the same time, and that's not always the easiest thing in the world, so, thank you.
Thank you, Matt, appreciate that. I also want to extend my gratitude to the city, the planning staff for guidance and support and carefully, creatively finding a way to navigate through this complex land use ordinance and changes and stuff, so that's been a lot of time and energy in that, so they did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, anyone else comment? If not, I'm going to start with the ordinances, and I'm going to start in motion to adopt ordinance 1022, approving zoning ordinance amendment to to PCD 15. So,
So moved.
who was that? I'm
So
sorry.
moved,
Oh,
sorry.
all I heard was motion by Councilmember Grau, sorry. Yeah. Second by her, Councilmember,
You got a bunch of control stuff here tonight.
Councilmember Hubbard. Seconded by, discussion. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Next, we're gonna look at motion to adopt ordinance 1023, approving the zoning ordinance amendment to section 15.16.030 Planned Commercial Development District.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Wong.
Second.
Nice, nice. Second by Councilmember.
I guess we're gonna try again, huh?
I got some
Second by
chance.
Councilmember Hatfield. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries. With those done, so now we're at motion to adopt resolution 1022-125, which is the Hazeltine Plaza Apartments, final site and building plan.
So moved, oh, gosh.
Motion,
So close.
motion by Councilmember Hubbard, second by Councilmember.
Second, yes, yep. I tried.
Discussion. I think we've pretty much covered the discussion part of this. So with that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign.
I'm glad we have fun up here.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. I'll see you later.
Something up here, huh?
All right,
Well.
next we go into item, is that what it's called? Items related to a tax abatement agreement with Oak Ridge LLC.
Mayor and council members, this item has come back, if you remember back in the September 12th meeting, we talked about the tax abatement agreement with Costco and that whole development. And we generally set the terms of it, but said that, you know, as the details got hammered out, we'd need to bring something back if it was changed. Elise is here to talk about some of the final things that were needed to get the deal done. I will just say, real big kudos to Elise, because you know, she figured out a way to be able to provide the assistance that was needed to get this sort of over the hurdle without really overall changing our economic position in the assistance that we're providing. So I'll just set that context that she did a great job doing that, but if you want to just go through and just sort of explain the details of that.
Certainly, Mayor and council members, as Matt indicated, the terms have changed slightly in order to fill that gap in the pro forma that occurred right before closing. So I just call your attention to the chart that was in the staff report, and I'll kind of go through that. Initially in September, we talked about a total tax abatement assistance of about $1.84 million. There was a request for an additional $500,000 to fill that gap. However, the structure changed slightly on how we plan to do that. So in this under the new terms that you are reviewing this evening, there would be upfront assistance of $700,000, and this would happen after you hold a public hearing, and I will talk about that here in a minute. Additionally, what didn't change was that deferred area and trail charges that we talked about. Those are city charges that we are not asking them to pay upfront as we normally do in developments, but instead we will defer those and pay ourselves back over a period of time. And then additionally, there will be a pay-go note issued at the end, and that's our typical way of how we finance these sort of projects. And that amount decreased slightly by $200,000 so that we could provide that $700,000 of upfront assistance. The term doesn't change. We're looking at a 20-year tax abatement term for the purposes of roundabout construction. Additionally, we talked just generally about a financial incentive to Continental to take an assessment agreement that we need to do for that deferred area and trail charges. They did agree to do that, and so we will be putting that in place. I do want to note that while we did increase that total amount of tax abatement assistance to the developer themselves, We are including interest to pay ourselves back on those area and trail charges over the period of time, which will be about $500,000. So when you look at it that way, we're not really providing additional assistance because we are paying ourselves back essentially through that interest.
One of the things that also changed too that I think is pretty significant, and this really occurred because when we went through to put the minimum tax, minimum assessment agreement in place for the county assessor's office, the value that we are using that we sort of assumed was going to be the value of the units for the residential units was about $165,000 a unit. The assessor came back and said, no, these are going to be valued at more like $200,000 per unit. So what that means is that it's not going to take 20 years to pay this back. It's going to take about 13 years to pay this back. So not only do we end up in a better, not a worse financial situation, but we actually end up better because this will be able to come off the books earlier, and then we'll be able to get things back, you know, sort of to where they were before. So to me, even though, you know, on the surface it's more assistance, and they needed that to get over the hump, it's a better financial situation for us because it's less years, and we end up being whole on the assistance we provide.
But we show it as a 20-year just because.
We show it because you.
That's the worst-case scenario.
Yes, and you don't want to undersell yourself.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So,
That's,
you
I
can
kinda
always
wanted to make that point.
You can always cancel it early, but you can't extend it. So,
Right,
yeah.
that's what I wanted to be clear on that.
So I would just note, there's a few things that we're recommending tonight in order to keep this moving. So one is we're recommending that you adopt the resolution granting contingent approval of this agreement. And that's because we're also asking you to set a motion, or to approve a motion that sets that public hearing date to November 7th, which is the official kind of protocol in order to get the tax abatement assistance in place. We had hoped to do it this evening. If you remember, a couple of weeks ago, we set that. However, because things changed too much from when we published that public hearing notice, we have to delay that. So hence the contingent approval of the agreement. It will be official once you take action on that. And then finally, we are recommending that you adopt a resolution that allows us to reimburse ourselves. So if we decide to, you know, finance that $700,000, you know, upfront by issuing debt, we have to do a reimbursement resolution upfront in order for us to do that. So that's really just setting in place in case that's what we decide. So those are the three motions in front of you. I noticed the developers are available on Zoom this evening, so if you have questions for them, they are available.
So in terms of that last item, so that there's no current plans to issue debt to be able to pay ourselves?
Well, we have an overall debt sale that we are in the midst of planning right now for like our street reconstruction and all these other types of things, projects that we're doing. What we're gonna do is we're gonna talk to our financial advisor and say, should we put this into there or should we just internally finance it? So we have a sale coming up that we could put it into. We're just gonna make an internal determination if it makes sense from a cash flow perspective or if we just don't need to. So if we do, you'll see that come back sometime in November. Because that's, I believe it's the second meeting in November when we have our sale date for that debt.
Okay. Good.
Are you all good?
I'm good.
Okay. I didn't know if you had more to discuss on it, so. Any questions on this? This is kind of a change in thing, and just, I don't know how much has been shared, but a week ago Friday when this was closing, that morning, there was a good chance that this might not have happened. And there was a lot of creative work by staff that was able to make, we were what, 1.5 million short? And between the developer and this, what we're doing here, was able to make that goal. And so that's a big step, and some people did some real fast work. And because it closed at about 6:30 about 8:30 our time, right? So it was right end of day because it was done out in Washington. So it was even though we're moving and they're moving fast, we could go Friday, they could have just as much turned the other way, so.
Well, and a kudos to the developer, because one of the things we
Right.
told them is, we can't, the council has to approve this.
Right.
And
So
so
they took a
you're gonna
gamble.
have to take a risk on this. You know, we think it makes sense and we can make an argument, but you ultimately have to take the risk on it because this needs to go back to council. And so they took that risk and let that closing move forward.
Because if it would have failed, then they'd be responsible for the other 500,000 besides. So there was some very creative work, and I just want to thank staff for that. Because we know what we would have heard if that would have fell through, like the Hy-Vee thing. But I think it was great work, and there's still, that's why this is, now we have to have the public hearing to make sure that there's nobody opposing it or whatever. So we still gotta go through steps, but hopefully they continue to move forward. And obviously, I hope, tonight that the resolutions all pass as well, so.
Well, and again, to me, the thing that made sense for us in the end is that we're not gonna end up any worse off.
Right.
And in fact, we're gonna end up better because we're gonna be able to close this tax abatement district sooner than what we would have anticipated.
And this is not costing any, the taxpayers any extra money.
It's all money coming from the project.
From the project. So that's the other thing I wanted to be clear, that we're not taking taxpayers' money. It's just how we're taking the money from the project to help fund the project, so. All right. Any particular order on these? Jake? No? Nope. Okay. I didn't know if that made a difference here, so, well, then I'm just gonna follow them down as they are on my list. The first thing that we start with is a motion to adopt resolution 2022-126, granting contingent approval of a tax abatement agreement.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Wong.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Grah. Motion to adopt resolution 2022-126. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. Motion carries. Now it's motion to set a public hearing for November 7th, 2022 to review the proposed property tax abatement. And if I remember this right from Luke reminded me, it'll be at the city council chambers at 7 o'clock. What am I missing?
The date.
On November 7th, 2022.
Any date.
Guess
Pick
the
day.
date.
I thought I already read the date. Sorry. Thought I read that earlier. All right. Is there anyone that would like to make a motion to whatever I said?
Motion, making an emotion.
Public hearing
Motion, make it a motion.
for November 7th, right here in this council chambers, 7 o'clock. So I have a motion by Councilmember Hatfield,
Second.
second by Councilmember Hubbard. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries. Last one is motion to adopt resolution 2022-127 relating to the finance of certain proposed projects and establishing compliance with reimbursement bond regulations under the Internal Revenue Code.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Hubbard.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Grah. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries. That is it on our action items. Yes. All right, we move to bills.
Only two questions. Page 2, there's an item for Archer Mechanical, looks like the CCC chiller installation. Is that for the one rinks, both rinks, or was it
It's
something
the air
else?
conditioner over in the gallery and over in the park and rec offices.
Really?
Our park and rec staff spent the last 45 days where it was like 90 degrees without any air over there, so
Ooh.
it was hot. So it broke down, so we had to replace it.
So this is one of those things that's kind of part of that deferred maintenance kind
Yes.
of pains that, now it's like, now we have to like dish it out or whatever the cost is because we couldn't plan ahead for it.
Yep.
Yep. Gotcha. Okay, the next one is, page 20. There's an item for a MnDOT. It's just 4161 paint signal. And what is it, paint signal pole or
So
what is that?
this is a contract payment for the Highway 4161 project. And the payment contract this time around included multiple things, one of them being painting light posts at Signal. So it's like, that was like $14,000. There was multiple things. So these pay apps come through as portions of the project are done.
Yeah.
And then they basically describe what's actually been done in that portion of the project.
And they painted them already?
Yeah, I don't know exactly which ones they are, but that was part of the first pay app, and they have to go through the whole inspection process for that.
Yeah, so this goes back to that whole thing of, and with our vendor of like, gosh, it'd be nice to be able to see
Yeah,
it
all
because-
of the pay apps, I don't think you'd ever see that, because it's usually about 25 different items that are,
Well, because it's one of those things where I see like painting a signal pole and it's
Yeah.
like $248,000. I'm like, I can paint a pole for less than that.
yeah.
That's why I was like, wait a second.
Yeah.
It's 200 feet high.
Oh, shoot, I need a big ladder. Can I borrow a ladder from somebody? But yeah.
I get
it's-
it, though. Yeah.
So, yep, so that's all I've got.
Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Motion to pay the bills.
So move.
Motion by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Hatfield to pay the bills. Discussion? Elise?
Councilmember Hatfield?
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Yes.
Councilmember Wong?
Aye.
Councilmember McGraw?
Yes.
Mayor Winchell?
Yes. All right, moves to other business. Councilmember Wong?
Let's see, only a couple things. First is that there's a Halloween Jamboree October 29th from 4 to 6 at the community center. The other item I've got is that early voting is now available, so I went and voted already, so which is a nice thing. So just want to let people know that if you want to vote for the general election, you can now do so at the county courthouse.
The fun fact that I've learned, if you vote early, your name comes off the record and you stop getting your phone calls and some of those communications like texts because they update the record. So if you're sick of the robocall or those types of things,
That's
I like
if
that.
you vote early,
Keeps
it
them from getting
updates.
lonely.
You still get mailings and all that
I don't know
stuff.
how tomorrow
But
will
it
be,
but it updates,
be
it actually
running.
updates and they'll stop sending that stuff out. So
how about commercials to your TV?
that one I can't control.
Nice. That would be nice. So, but yes, and the other thing too is that when I went there, there's maybe like 2 or 3 people out, along in there too. So, there's no lines, which is great. So in and out in a few minutes and done. So, just highly recommended. Great thing to be
And
able
they
to
give
do.
you a sticker still.
And you still get your sticker too. There I got a sticker. One question I had was that, over in Chaska Commons, there's, over by Petco, there's a 3-way intersection next to, it's like, there's a stop sign in front of the Petco and that crossing lane that kind of goes by it. Something happened to the stop sign there. I know it's not a city street. I think it's on private property. But I almost got in an accident because someone was coming through, no stop sign, and just kept on going. And it's like, dude, there should be a stop sign there, but it was clearly gone. But obviously it's not our jurisdiction. But
Yeah, I'll let Luigi know about that.
yeah, okay, that'd be great. And that's all I got.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Couple things. I attended the, he had me thinking of Jamboree, Trail of Fun. I was like, that's not what I should. Yeah, so I attended that on Saturday. Looked like a great crowd. Tons of fun. Always want to thank the Park and Rec staff for putting that on, along with Carver County Parks and some business sponsors as well that were there. So saw a lot of kids having fun, and it was good weather. So, and then we had a community center task force meeting. I know Matt had kind of done a nice job with the synopsis of it, but basically we met as a group and we were able to, kind of personally rank and also small group rank, kind of what we felt, setting aside the kind of the more critical infrastructure needs, you know, knowing like, okay, yeah, the parking lot's gonna get done, the HVAC and the roof are gonna get done. But like, what areas of focus inside the building do you feel like would be priorities, you know, moving forward to revamp, you know, the space? And so there was a lot of good commentary about that, a lot of good perspectives with some of our citizen members of the task force and also some of the staff. And so I felt like a really productive conversation happened in regards to that. And I can't remember what the future meeting is about.
So November 30th, now that the objectives are set and sort of the priorities are set for what to focus on, the consultant is going to be coming back with actual physical drawings to actually look at based on taking that feedback and saying, how do you translate that into actual concept plans? So this is where, to me, the meat of everything starts to come together, where you take those comments and you start actually translating them into what does this mean?
So if I can't make, since they changed the date.
Too bad. No.
I mean, is this something I can meet with them about
Yes.
outside
So
of the?
what we've been doing is, even with the group of people who weren't able to make it to the last meeting, Marshall's been setting up a separate time after the fact with them to make sure that they have an opportunity to
Okay.
get their feedback in.
Yeah. So, and then they did do kind of a survey to the membership. Was it just the membership or was it just anybody?
Is anybody who uses the community center?
That's what I thought. And again, same thing, kind of ranking priorities.
They're pretty similar.
And they were, that was kind of the thing, was that you kind of saw some of the, you know, commonalities about it. So, but I'll defer to Councilmember Gra for any other commentary on that. Otherwise, I think that's pretty much about it for me.
Okay. Councilmember Gra.
There you go. I would echo.
Segue.
I would echo that. It's been a fun process to listen to community members that are users, and I felt like it's been a very well kind of organized. You know, you get, you know, there's some math out there. The more people you get involved with different ideas, you know, herding cats a little bit. But the developer does a good job of focusing us on kind of the conversation in creative ways, and it's just fun to listen to that. And it's an exciting perspective of kind of what that future of that building holds. So I'm excited to see drawings. I agree. Like it's, I can live in the conceptual world, but I like to see drawings.
Yeah.
You know, right? So I think that's.
Some people are word people, some people are visual people.
Yep,
Well,
yep.
I think too, some of the people that are in there, like we have a couple of school district representative, it's nice to see and explore the idea of innovative partnerships, like with the use of the aquatics and things of that nature too, to kind of see if we can be a little bit more strategic about things.
We also have, and this is something that Nate and Marshall and Matt Clark and I have been talking a lot about this. We have a really big opportunity coming up with the fact that Carver County is going to be reconstructing Engler Boulevard out in front between the community center and Highway 41. You know, the county in the most desperate way wants to try to eliminate access points onto 41, which, you know, they don't like that there's multiple access for the schools through there, and okay, that's fine. Let's take this sort of challenge and let's make it an opportunity and say, are there ways that we can start partnering together with the school district to really come back to the county with some ideas of how we might be able to creatively address this, so that is both a benefit to us with the community center and the school district with those facilities around there, because it is not very efficiently laid out right now, any of that stuff. And so, you know, the driving factor, the money that could help push this forward is really, the opportunity is when that road gets reconstructed. So the timing of this is really good, because we can go and sort of actively promote that, hey, we have our community engaged in this whole discussion now, and like you said, with the school district. And so how do we use those opportunities to develop a better scenario for parking, for driving in there, all that?
I already told Marshall my outlandish ideas.
All right.
No, I said we should buy that middle school and make it an annex of the community center with, anyways.
Buy it a what?
Never mind, for a different day.
Her time's up, it's fine. Still helping you there. So yes, I would echo that. Just because you'll have the facts, and I'm picturing the sign in my head, but I can't remember what it says. Signage is up on Chaska Boulevard about closure from 41 past, what's the,
Walnut.
so Walnut, what's the whole update on kind of that closure and?
I wouldn't necessarily take those signs as
Okay.
as gospel. Those signs went up without our knowledge. And we are currently in discussions with the contractor about scheduling lots of things. And so I hesitate to give a definitive answer back because I don't think there is a definitive answer yet. I don't think any of us were very pleased about the calls we were getting this morning from businesses saying this went from nothing to something in a day.
It did just magically appear.
Yes.
I drive that stretch every day and.
So I will get back to you with what that is, but there are discussions that need to occur that we have not been a part of that we need to be. I will get back to you guys, but I want to make sure I'm getting back to you guys with accurate information.
All right, well, that's good for people to hear too.
Yep.
Yes, I will say that.
Good question, because I saw that too, and I wondered the same thing. 'cause
Yeah, I drive
I
that
thought
every
nothing
day.
was gonna happen. Not like that, anyways.
Yeah, yeah. To say we weren't pleased is an understatement. So.
Because you get the calls, right? That's the
Yeah.
kicker. A
Well,
sign can go up,
to me,
but they're calling.
to me, it's a credibility issue.
Right.
It's a credibility issue with the people that we work with the businesses, and, you know, we have a long-term relationship we need to manage with the businesses within our community. And,
This is not the first time we had issues. We had them 2 weeks ago.
this is the fourth time we've had issues.
Fourth, okay.
Yes.
So.
None
yeah,
of them have
it's-
been super big, but they've been enough of an indicator to me to say that something's not right.
The left and right hand aren't speaking.
Yes. So we are gonna be having discussions about that. Again, nothing has been like earth-shatteringly bad, but there's been enough indication to me that if we don't get more control over this now, it's gonna be painful. So that's why we're really saying we gotta jump on this right now. So,
Is the construction contractor that's the issue, or?
we're still sort of trying to figure that out.
Okay. Yep.
So, yep.
All right, and then lastly, I know we're not meeting in 2 weeks, so Halloween. I just think it's a friendly reminder for parents and children and teens who are out trick-or-treating to, look for cars, traffic. I particularly will say driving, particularly pay attention. I suspect particularly like even coming rush hour in the evening, coming home. I kind of have this belief that Halloween should always fall on a weekend as a parent of young kids, but it's on a Monday this year, and which means parents probably will try to get out a little earlier. So even coming home from your work, just be mindful that there might be some trick-or-treaters and be safe. It's a fun time of year, but it's a lot going on the roads and sidewalks. So just a reminder to everyone who will be out and about that evening. And that is all I have.
Councilor Hatfield?
Yes. Few events coming up. There's a food distribution. That already happened. No, October 20th. Wow. On Thursday the 20th. So it's coming up. I was really confused on what day it was for a second. Coffee with a Cop on the 27th at Dunbro's. So that's at 9 a.m. Those are always nice events. And then in kind of conjunction with the Halloween Jamboree, earlier in the day, you can go trick or treat downtown. Chaska and visit a bunch of businesses. I don't know how many the final number are, but the Herald this week will, or should, have the flyer with the different businesses. So you can go shop and the kids can get candy or whatever the businesses will be handing out. So that'll be a nice event as well. And that also, there's St. John's trunk or treat kind of in the same time. So you can go downtown and do a bunch of things and then head up to the Jamboree. And then, yeah, that is, I don't think there was anything else. That's it. So, yeah.
Okay. Nate?
I have nothing to add.
Elise? Jake?
Nothing.
Matt?
Just a reminder, the meeting changed, no Halloween, and then we will have work sessions. Work session before the November 7th will be our utility budgets, and then the work session before the 21st will be our recreation fund budgets. And then the only other thing I was going to mention is the mayor and I had an opportunity to talk with a reporter from the Star Tribune today who I thought really did a good job of spending a lot of time with us talking about our building program and sort of understanding what's behind our tax levy. And much more in depth, getting in and understanding the issue than I have typically seen on a tax levy article before. So you never know how that's going to translate into an article, but I thought he did an exceptional job of just asking good questions and making sure that they understood sort of what's behind the numbers.
Yeah, I was really impressed. He called me Friday, and I said, I don't have all the numbers. I'm in my vehicle, and he wanted to call Monday, and I thought I'd get with Matt, but he just seemed like he really wanted, he said, I want to make this article right. And I thought, wow, you don't usually get that, so very impressed with him so hopefully.
Yeah, so I think the hope is that's another good way to get out information to people about our program, so.
Yeah, he never did say when the article's going to be.
No, but the Herald is doing a similar article too, where they came around and they did a tour of all of our buildings. So we took the new reporter, and Kevin Wright and I spent probably 3 hours driving around and taking tours of different facilities. So, my impression too there was that,
Did you get lost on an island at the same time?
we did come back, but I appreciate the fact that both reporters really took the time to try to understand the issue. And again, you don't know how it's going to turn out when it comes out, but just the amount of time that they both took to put towards it, I thought was pretty cool.
All right, anything else, Matt? All right, just a couple things. We talked about early voting, but if you don't early vote, make sure you vote November 8th is the actual day of the election. And check our website if you're not uncertain on your polling places. We do have 4 polling places for residents, so make sure you know where you're voting. One thing Matt mentioned, we have meetings November 7th and the 21st, but we also have a meeting November 17th to canvass the votes. That'll be a very short meeting, probably 30 minutes at max, but it's a requirement that we do that. And then, I don't remember the date, but because Chaska's the largest city, so then we'll canvass the votes for the county as well, a couple days later, I believe, because it's got to be done within, I think, 10 days. Is it 10 days of the election? Yep.
Yeah, we set the date.
Don't forget to get that on your calendar, November 17th, that we be canvassing. So we kind of talked about construction. It just seems kind of crazy that we just finished up Walnut Street and they're digging it again. Isn't there some way that we can eliminate that? It just seems crazy. And I've had some conversations with some people and about, it's like kind of like the gas company. After we reconstructed whole downtown, they came in and decided that they're going to change their policy. Is there something we can put in place that say, no, moratoriums or whatever it is for 5 years that you can't dig in the street, or unless it's emergency, obviously, but it just,
I think the challenge here is that they're not just doing regular maintenance work. They're doing work that's related to the 4161 project.
wouldn't some of that have been done like at Walnut and?
The design of the project wasn't completed until after that project was already almost constructed. And so I get it. We sat over at Red Bench last week and we're sitting there watching them dig a hole in the street and we're like, oh my God, this is, I agree. You hate to see it. One of the challenges is that, the timing of when these plans are done, they don't know exactly where they're working until they get these plans. So the best you can do is to go back and say, well, it needs to be restored in a proper way.
But we all know that there'll always be a dip there, and it's something, I don't know if there's anything that we can, as we move forward, I mean, I don't know how much more they can dig in these streets anymore.
Yeah, well,
without running into
the good news is there's not very much left to do.
But
I don't disagree with you.
It's
I mean,
frustrating, you
yeah.
go downtown and everywhere you go, there's different colors of concrete now, and it just, I don't know. I haven't been questioned, but somebody's gotta be looking back on, really?
Well, I mean, honestly, we're doing the same thing, but at the same time, it's like, I get it. You know,
I
it's.
needed to ask the question,
Yeah,
because it drives
I-
me crazy
Yeah.
that, you know, all these things are done, or, you know, we go in and do something, and then somebody comes in behind and does it again, it just, I don't know. I mean, I know it's something different, but digging in.
The only way we could have ever avoided that is if we would have designed the entire downtown all at once,
Which could never happen.
which we'd never be able to afford to do it.
All right, well, I had to ask.
It's a good question, and quite frankly, it's one of those, that if I were a resident, I'd look in and say, what is going on? You know, but there is a reason why.
Like I said, I know that you can restore the concrete and you can get it all back, but it's just the checkerboard and patches in the street that are brand new, you know. Patches come fast enough without having to do them a year later, but.
Yeah.
So, all right, thank you for that. And I'm just gonna close by adding the same thing on Halloween. I've always put that out there about being extra careful about driving. In our day of, everyone needs to get somewhere in a hurry, you gotta be really, really careful that night, because it's dark, and you can't always see the little ones, so we wanna be very, very careful, so. But have fun, rest of, you know. It's a Monday night this year? That's right, it would be. Yep.
Just make sure adults, if there's adults around, you're handing out full-size candy bars to the adults.
Yeah, right. Full size. We'll just let it go at that. All right. Last call. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hatfield, second by Councilmember Wong to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. We are adjourned. We'll see you November 7th. Thanks for being here.